Hello, I'm Chris Travell and welcome to the MaritzCX Café. I'm here today in San Diego at the Next Generation Customer Experience Conference, and there was a presentation today that I want to tell you about. The gentleman's name was Tiger Cosmos, and Tiger is a very interesting guy. He works for Ford, but he also did a 3-year stint with Apple. And what his presentation talked about was how some of the principles that Apple employs could be used in the automotive industry. The reason I find this very, very interesting is because any of us who have spent any time around the OEM world will know that, of course, Apple's held up as an example of ways that we may want to do things in the automotive industry. So what Tiger did was really kind of put some meat on the bones of what that could look like. And he gave us permission to share this with you. Tiger, thank you for doing that. And let's take a look at some of those things right now. Apple has a specific communication framework that is taught to all of their employees. First of all, for restoring relationships, they talk about the 3 A's. First, acknowledge, align, and assure. So what does this look like in a service advisor customer relationship example here? Well, acknowledge could be something like the service advisor saying, I can see that you're upset. So they're acknowledging the situation in which the customer finds themselves. Second, align. This is the empathy part, where the service advisor would say something like, I would feel that way too. So they're empathizing with the customer. And lastly, assure. So the service advisor would say something like, well, I will work with you to find the best solution. So at the end of the process, at the end of the service appointment, the customer can be assured that the best is going to be turned out for them. Apple also uses what's called an engagement framework, and to describe this, they use the 3 P's. First of all, position, then permission, and then probe. So what does that mean in our world? Well, in the case of position, the service advisor could say something like, in order for me to assist you, can you give me a little bit more information? So they're positioning the relationship with the customer to engage them. Second of all, for permission, may I ask you a few questions? And lastly, probe. Tell me more about that. So I think you can see this can be applied not only in a service context, but in a sales context as well. Another concept that Tiger talked about was what was called fearless feedback. And what this is a one-on-one, peer-to-peer learning process that Apple has installed. The feedback is always given one-on-one and in person, and it's based on the observed behavior that can materially affect the customer experience. And obviously it seems to work pretty well. The reason I found the presentation very, very helpful was the fact that in the automotive industry, as I mentioned at the beginning, we tend to look to Apple as a potential benchmark. What Tiger's presentation did was really put meat on the bones of what that could potentially look like in an automotive context. So Tiger, thank you very much for allowing us to share this information. And from San Diego, I'm Chris Travell, and thanks for joining us today on the MaritzCX Café.